What's going on, everybody? I wanted to do a quick little video about Spider-Man. If you know me, you know I love Marvel stuff. I grew up reading comics. I was a huge Captain America, Spider-Man, Thor, all that stuff, X-Men, and I want to talk about this Spider-Man movie real quick. I'm not going to talk a lot about what's in the movie at all, so you don't have to worry about spoilers or any of that stuff. I want to talk about what led up to this movie and why I think this movie is so important for America right now. I know it sounds overblown. You might be like, whatever. That's a ridiculous overstatement, Kevin, but I want to make this point. Something I've been kind of thinking about for a while. So a little bit of backstory. This movie has been slated to come out this year. Every 3 years, Sony, who owns the rights to Marvel, Spider-Man, has to put out a Spider-Man movie. It's part of the contract for them to retain the rights. So they will always be putting out Spider-Man movies every 3 years. Spider-Man is an extremely marketable character. I think it outsells all other Marvel characters, something like 9-1 for a historical perspective. So Spider-Man usually does really well, but it can go poorly. The Spider-Man movie that came out with Andrew Garfield, the second one, particularly was kind of like the end of the series because it just underperformed and people weren't feeling it. A lot of people love it, but it just, I'm merely saying that it doesn't always rake in the cash. It isn't always just a cash cow, but if it's done right, people love it. People love the character of Spider-Man. He's a kid. He makes mistakes. He's freewheeling and goofy though, but he's super smart, and he's got a lot of he's constantly sacrificing and kind of always ends up losing is kind of like the thing about Spider-Man. He can never really catch a break in some ways. And so anyway, all I'm saying is this. One of the things that's so cool about this movie leading up to it was Hollywood's taking a beating. And I think as Americans, we have this love-hate relationship with Hollywood. In a weird way, I've thought about it this way. Because of globalization, we don't actually export that many products in America as we used to. We actually import a ton of our stuff. Obviously, all of your clothes, so much of your furniture, all this stuff comes from China or Sri Lanka or, wherever. It's mostly China. It's kind of crazy. I'm not commenting on that. But our number one export that I think is the one that is the most impactful is Hollywood. The thing that we export to the world are our stories, our movies, our cinema, and like those legends and lore that are coming out of America, right? And so if you're from another culture, you see that and it props up the idea of America. And I think that's the glitz and the glamour and the stuff that's cool about Hollywood. But there's also that ugly dark side that we all know, that there's a lot of sleazy people in Hollywood, it seems, and a lot of just questionable moral character that is undergirding the foundation of Hollywood. And they got to sort that out. I'm not commenting on that specifically, but it's important that Hollywood does well for America because it is our greatest export in terms of our influence in the world and the stories that people receive and feel about America. And it gives us a sense of pride too as Americans. When we see a character who's heroic, does difficult things, makes hard sacrifices, and grows as a result, like that is the modern campfire that we all gather around to absorb and identify with and say, yes, that's who I want to be. And that's who I want my country to be filled with, is people that are like that, right? And so for me, we have this love-hate relationship with Hollywood here in America, but we're so intimately linked. And so fast forward a little bit, you have Hollywood's taken a bit of a beating over the last, I would say last couple of years, really since COVID, where people aren't coming out as much, and kind of the narrative around some of these Marvel movies, which typically would be almost like shoe-ins to make 700 million, 800 million, 900 million. They just weren't doing that. You had the Eternals, you had Shang-Chi, you had Black Widow, and all of those underperformed to some degree. And the narrative was spun like, oh, they actually did pretty well post-pandemic, or, pandemic era. It's kind of like in baseball where they say, home runs were hit a lot more after a certain period where people were juicing, or, weightlifting became a thing or whatever. So there's starting to be this conversation like, oh, since COVID, movies just don't make as much and they got to go to streaming because everybody's watching movies on Netflix and HBO Max and whatever. You get what I'm saying? And technology's cool. That's cool that technology gives us that. But there is something awesome about going to a movie theater in a communal experience and sitting with a bunch of strangers who all love this thing like you do, and they laugh out loud and they cheer and they clap and like they get excited when something happens. As someone who's made a couple documentaries that have received like public applause in the film, it's an amazing feeling when people who come to watch your film are moved to tears or laughter from what you do. That's like literally why you make movies, right? So there's such a beautiful thing that happens when you sit in a group of strangers and do that together, right? You share that experience and go, we all agree this is cool, and I want to be like that person, or I want to be heroic in my life too. So to me though, what you saw is this film completely destroy expectations, and I think right now it's the third highest opening weekend of all time. COVID be damned. Like I think $600 million this movie has made in one weekend, which is incredible. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't include any China audience at all. Like there's no Chinese release of this movie yet. So what does that mean for me? And to me, what I was thinking was this. I was, as much as I have problems with Hollywood, I was thankful as an American that this movie was being received so well and making so much money. And the whole time I was watching, I thought, this is amazing. This movie is so much fun. This is such a great story about a character that people like. And they gave fans, and I hate this is a catchphrase for people on YouTube talking about movies, but they gave fans what they wanted, and they didn't try to infuse a lot of political agenda into it. And I heard it put this way one time, and I think this rings true for me. We expect a little bit of propaganda, a little bit of a spoonful of propaganda to make the sugar go down, or to make the it's a flipped inverse ratio, but a little bit of propaganda is fine as long as you give me like a cup of sugar with my entertainment, right? It's fine. It's fine. You might roll your eyes sometimes if something seems really over the top, but lately it's felt a little bit more like here's a cup of entertainment. Here's a cup of propaganda. And that ratio is just off. People aren't going to enjoy that. They're going to tune out. And so if you want to, and I guess I'm speaking strictly from a business sense for this, if I'm an executive at Sony and I'm an executive at Marvel, I'm going to be looking at this and thinking, wow, this movie just pulled in more money than all the other Marvel movies we put out this year in one weekend. And you could say, yeah, mostly that's Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is not immune to that. And I think Star Wars is a great example where you have a lot of people that are hardcore Star Wars fans, but have kind of lost their love and are no longer like what I think some of these big companies don't understand. I think they should understand this, but if you have a fan base that's so engaged like the Marvel fan base is, and you just give them what they want and challenge them too. I mean, I'm not just saying manufacture out like cheap junk, but give them what they want. Tell great heroic stories and show them struggle and make there be stakes in the film. They will hand you their money all day long. They will hand you their money and they will be thankful to do it. But Eternals, Shang-Chi, Black Widow, all these underperformed. And I haven't seen all three of them. I didn't watch them. I didn't like how they were marketed and I just wasn't interested. So I didn't go. But this Spider-Man movie, I thought the marketing was phenomenal. The trailer looked amazing. And this movie was so much fun and so enjoyable. And like the most fun I had in a theater in a long time. And so to me, I thought that this movie, what's really cool, this is what I was thinking the whole time I was watching this movie. Us as Americans need films like this that we can all enjoy together. In the last 2 years of divisiveness and political like animosity separating us, to sit in a theater and all look at the same story playing out in front of us and enjoy it and identify with it and cheer for the same characters, we need that so bad in our culture. And I hope that Hollywood sees that and takes note in the sense that can improve American cultural relations and goodwill, and it can be very profitable. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I don't know why you wouldn't lean into that, because I think we should be seeking to unify and look at ways that we have common ground and we have shared values. One of the things that I've been disturbed about over the last couple of years, and maybe for years before that, but really took hold in the last 2 years, is What do we as Americans all agree on? What do we all hold as shared common values? As a business owner, we're always thinking about what makes us unique. What are our core values? What makes us upset if it's not true? Like, how do we know if someone is one of us, right? Like, you want to know who is one of you in your culture. And that can be tricky because America is such a big melting pot, as we say. But like, despite that, why do people come here? What do we all look at and say, that's good, that's true, that's beautiful. Here's what we want to be. What is that exactly? And I think that's important to figure out. And I think Hollywood actually is one of those main drivers that gives us an orientation of what to look at and say, I want to be heroic like that character. I want to be someone who overcomes obstacles and does the hard thing and lays down my life for my friends, or goes on a fun, exciting adventure and is willing to accept the consequences of stepping out my front door, as we know Bilbo Baggins, did. So it's dangerous business, right? Going out your front door, but that's what's exciting about it. And so I don't want to go too much more. I wanted to just say this. I'm thankful this movie was so well done. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. If you haven't figured that out by now, it's so much fun. It is action-packed. The action scenes are really good to me, even though it's all CG, right? Like, we live in this era of CG. When you watch an action film and you can't keep up with what the heck's going on and you don't understand, like, I don't like when it doesn't make sense. It's just like punch, 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 something happened, but you really can't make a connection between the sequence that just played out in front of you. That stuff drives me nuts. But to me, I felt like I could follow this, even though the action was immense and all over the place. It was digestible, and it was logical, and it served the plot and all these good things. So I hope you find this interesting. To me, I'm someone who really cares about storytelling. I really care about America, our culture, our unity as a culture, and like finding common ground. So this whole time I was watching this movie, I was just like, man, this is good. This is good for America that people are going out to watch this movie. And I hope that you go watch it. I'm going to go watch it probably one more time. I've seen it twice. When I like a movie, I watch it 3 times. And so maybe I'll see you there. But in the meantime, thanks for watching this video. You guys have been really kind to me. I've had a lot of really good feedback. I've had some of my close friends just say to me in person, like, hey, I really like this thing that you said. And it prompted some really good conversation. So that's exactly why I'm doing this. If you're hanging with me and watching these videos, leave me some feedback. You can comment in the YouTube link here. You can comment on Facebook, or you can just message me or tell me when you see me in person. But I love it. I want to put this stuff out there, and I want to stir up good dialogue and get to know you better, and hopefully you get to know me better. And I want to do the best I can to put out good, thoughtful content into the world, and thoughts. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great night. Oh yeah, I wanted to say one more thing about Tom Holland, actually. I think this is a really cool story. So, okay, we now have a movie that's made $600 million in an opening weekend. And if you don't remember, if you don't pay attention to stuff, you might have not known this happened, but a couple years ago, it was a really big deal because Sony and Disney were not copacetic about how the deal should be. There was a contract renegotiation or whatever, and there was like a period of time where they were at the table, and then all the entertainment reporting was saying it was done. And assuming they're all telling the truth, that's all true, it looked like the Tom Holland iteration of Spider-Man and like Spider-Man's participation in Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe was over. And that was a pretty huge deal because Spider-Man being in the MCU was such a big deal when it happened. The legend that I understand goes that Tom Holland actually saved the deal because he called Kevin Feige, who's the head of Marvel essentially. He called him one night, and I think he'd even had a couple beers, a couple drinks, and he basically, through tears, told him, like, I want this to work. Can we make this? I want you to know that me, the guy playing Spider-Man, wants this to happen. And so he made a call and like poured his heart out to Kevin Feige, apparently. And I guess I just want to say, like, after now watching this movie come out, like the next film, and then Sony and Disney were able to figure things out, right, and put this together. I just think it's another awesome reminder about the power of an individual to pick up the phone and negotiate something and put their heart out there and like make, and it sounds cheesy, I know, but like make the world a better place. Like he could have just been an egotistical actor and said, "Oh, I'll let them fight it out," but he made a call, and maybe alcohol helped him do it, but whatever. Now we have another movie to go enjoy together, and these studios can make millions of dollars. So Tom Holland, I just want to say, great job, man. You crushed it. You as an actor, and then you actually putting your neck out there and like trying to work the angles that you could to give people awesome experiences like this. So great job.